Have you ever been asked to prove yourself in some way? Or have you told your friends a plan or an ambition just to have them completely not understand? Say you wanted to be a professional athlete. You would have to prove that you are good enough to be a professional in that particular sport. You would have to prove your dedication to the long training hours and the kind of lifestyle and diet that you would have to follow to be in that particular sport. You'd have to get up early and put in long days and late nights. You might have to deny yourself some of the sweet treats that your friends might all be eating. Your friends and family might not actually understand why you're putting yourself through all of that because they don't get your end goal. For example, my family have never been into football. We just don't like it. We never got it. If someone tells me they want to be a professional footballer, and I think about the hours and the training and the diet and the exercise that has to go into that, I kind of don't understand why. Because I've never really stopped to appreciate their love or passion for the sport. I just don't get it. This happened with Jesus and his followers quite a lot. They didn't understand some of the things that Jesus did or said because they didn't understand fully who he was. They had seen Jesus do some amazing, miraculous things like bring people back from the dead and feed thousands of people with a tiny scrap of food and walk on water. But they didn't always understand that Jesus' power to do these things came from his power as God's Son, and that his life was part of the bigger rescue plan for the entire world. One day, when Jesus and his disciples were travelling from town to town, Jesus asked them, "Who do people in the town say that I am?" The disciples said that some people thought he and John the Baptist were the same person. Others said that they thought he was the prophet Elijah. Jesus then asked them who they thought that he was. Peter was the first one to speak up.
Let me explain who Peter was.
Peter was one of Jesus' disciples or followers. Peter had been a fisherman, and Jesus had called him to come and follow him, and immediately he left down his nets and got up and went with Jesus. Peter was rash and hasty, and he liked to jump in with both feet, usually because he didn't fully understand the situation. But out of all the circumstances, Peter's actions were usually driven by his love for people. Peter was the one that when Jesus walked on water, said to Jesus, "Call me out of the boat and I will walk towards you on the water." This was a huge success for about a minute until he looked around, saw the wind and the waves, got scared, sank, and Jesus had to save him, which he did, of course. Peter was always quick to defend, especially Jesus. He would jump in and always want the best for people, but again, not always understanding the circumstances. But that gives you a bit of a clue about who Peter is. Back to the main point. Peter was the first one to speak up. "You are the Christ, the Son of God," he'd said. Jesus blessed Peter and told him that one day Peter would be the foundation of the whole Christian church. Peter was the person who would launch and lead the movement of Christianity across the entire world. Jesus then warned the disciples to keep it to themselves, to keep it secret about his true identity. He told them that the day was coming soon where he would be arrested and put on trial despite not having done anything wrong, and that he would eventually be killed and put on a cross. The disciples were shocked and horrified, and Peter once again jumped in saying, "I won't let that happen." But Jesus shushed him and told him to be quiet. He knew that Peter didn't fully understand exactly what was going on. Peter was the first one of the disciples to see that Jesus was the Christ, the Son of God, but he didn't understand that that meant that Jesus was part of God's rescue plan, and that it was necessary that he would have to die. All Peter could see was that the man he'd loved and devoted his life to for the past 3 years was talking about being arrested and killed. A week later, Jesus took Peter and 2 other disciples, James and John, up a mountain to pray. When they got to the top, Jesus' appearance was transformed in front of them. His face shone like the sun. His clothes became as white could be. It was blinding to look at. Suddenly, the prophets Moses and Elijah stood on either side of Jesus talking with him. Peter, being Peter, was the first to jump in. "It's so amazing to be here with you, Lord. We should build tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But while Peter was still kind of babbling away in his shock, suddenly a cloud came down around them, and the voice of God spoke. "This is my son. I love him. I am pleased with him. Listen to him." The disciples were terrified, and they fell down on their faces. I don't know about you, but I sometimes wonder what the voice of God sounds like. The voice that spoke the entire universe into being. That must be a pretty awesome sound. The next thing the disciples know, Jesus is touching them on the shoulder, saying not to be afraid. And when they looked up, his appearance had turned to normal, and Moses and Elijah and the cloud were gone. Once again, Jesus warned them not to tell anyone of what they'd seen until after his death and resurrection from the cross. Sometimes when we tell someone our plans and goals, they might not get it, or they might not see it as being a valid reason. The family or friends of an aspiring footballer might just think they're in it for the fame or the money. But when we look at the dedication, the time, the training, the careful eating that they have to put into that goal, I don't think anyone could accuse them of doing it on a whim or without proper thought. When we take the time to look at Jesus' identity as the Son of God, we can start to see why he did the things he did and said the things he said. He knew he was there to take the punishment for the sin of the world, to put our relationships right with God. Jesus was truly dedicated to his cause, and we are that cause. Everything he did for us, so that our relationships could be put right.